how to use art history with random fills in Photoshop. I'm using 220, but you can use this in earlier as well. Key panels here are window and layers and history. You can see those on the left. And I'm going to be using a shape. I'm going to use shape as a start point. So file and new. Now, shape I'm going to create is a triangle, but you could create a circle, use any of the custom shapes as well. Now I'm going to have a transparent background, 8-bit. Click OK. Great. So you could use custom shapes, you could use ellipses, polygons, but I'm just going to use the pen tool, using it with the shape option. So pen tool, and go to the top left and set to shape. Set the color to grey. Now that's useful for the random fill. So if you set it to black, you won't get the colorization, but I'm just going to use it as grey and you get the full range. So a layer and a layer style and drop shadow. Now you could add a bevel here, you could add glows, all those sort of things. I'm not. I'm just going to go with standard shadow. And I just want to define that as a pattern. So edit menu and define pattern. Now I'm going to use this quite a few times, a define pattern, but this is just the start point. And so it could be a line, it could be a circle, it could be anything. Just need something to use. So go to File and New. Just select one of those presets. Now I want 8-bit. So I'm going to set that to 300 resolution, but I want 8-bit because artistry doesn't work, sadly, in 16-bit. So 8-bit, and I'm going to have a white background. Great. Now I'm going to use the defined pattern. So I can use that, and I can use that on a layer, or just apply it just to the background layer. Fine as well. So edit and fill. Set the contents to pattern. Set the one you've just created, the custom pattern you've just defined. Just down the bottom there, there's a triangle. Make certain the script is on. I always deselect, select if I remember. Otherwise, what happens sometimes, it just doesn't use the random fill at all. Just ignores it. I think it's a bug. Hasn't been fixed for years, so I don't know why, but I've always had problems with that. Colorize random set to fairly high. Scale factor, just set as you wish. And you can do it a couple of times because the preview doesn't match the end result either. Click OK. Just apply it 3 or 4 times and you'll get a fairly filled design. As I say, you could apply this on a layer, multiple layers, maybe use different shapes. You don't have to use just a triangle. You could use triangles and squares and circles and whatever. Once you've done that, go to the history panel, go down to the last fill and click on the left side there. There's just set the source for the history brush. It says there, but it's for the art history brush as well. There's the art history brush. Now that may be in a different position depending on your customization of your tools. So I've just selected that. Now you need a brush for that. And I like to use a sort of rough, slightly rough brush. At the moment I've got a star there, but I don't want to use that. I want to use, like, see the brush is next door to the star. Something like that. Very easy to create that if you wish. But it works better than just a very standard straight. So I'm just going to go with File and New. Hit create. And I'm going to use a shape. And it's a very basic shape, just going to use a circle, the shape layer. So go to the ellipse tool, set to black, and then just create a shape. It's just a standard shape, circle, and add a couple of nodules at the side. Just go around the edge, just add some varied size circles. Just makes it rougher, and it just works better, I think, with the art history. Just my observation. So, edit menu and define brush preset. Click OK. Now go back to that document. Just drag that out now, expand that a bit so you can see it. And you've got that design there. What I can do, I'm going to use the art history tool with that. So select the art history tool. And I'm using loose long for the style. You don't have to use that. That's one I like to use. So I'm just going to set the size. Now I'm going to set the size fairly small. It's going to go down to about 5 or 6, 7. Use the blending mode of normal. And edit and fill. And set it to black. Don't have to do this. You could just create a new layer and then remove it. But I'm just going to just create a complete fresh document with a black background there. Go to layer and new layer, because I'm going to delete that background side, but I just wanted it there initially just to show you the design. And then just apply the art history brush. Now this is using those triangles as a source. You can see the triangle there just formed. Now, if you'd used circles, you would have seen circles and other designs. Or maybe text. Perfectly reasonable as well. So you could write some words, use that, make some interesting designs. Now, I've deleted the background. And you've got that design. What I want to do is edit and define a pattern. I'm going to do this a couple of times now. You can apply multiple designs to this, so you can just keep applying more brush strokes. Maybe change the size. You don't have to keep the size at 7. You can maybe make it 10 or 15. So just vary that. You can also go to the brush settings, change those to change the colorized effects. And each time you can define it as a pattern. So you can also use rectangular marquee tool, select part of that design, define that as a pattern. Maybe blur it. So filter menu and Gaussian blur, or maybe stylize and oil paint. Click OK. Now you could fade it, apply effects. The fade, maybe use different blending modes. Now define that as a pattern as well. Oops, don't want that. Don't want to use the selection tool. I want to use the art history again. So go back to the art history tool. And apply it again on top of the blurred design. And you could, of course, colorize this before you apply additional strokes as well. So just go to the image menu and adjustments. Just colorize it. Then define that as a pattern. Now it's a layer, it's on a layer. So what you can do, just resize that layer. So maybe make it smaller. And then hold down the Alt or Option key. And drag. So you can duplicate it. So you can create 3 or 4 copies of it, make a real sort of messy design there. And again, you could colour some of those as well, different ways. Apply different effects to them, maybe blur 1 or 2 of them. Or distort them. Now you can select all of those layers. Now you could flatten that into one single layer, merge it. Or you can use layer menu and smart objects. Convert it into a smart object. Again, that can be defined as a pattern, so you can go to Edit and Define Pattern. But you can also use transformations. Edit menu and transform. I'll just define its pattern first. Click OK. Edit and transform, and maybe use warp or perspective or distort. So you can distort that. Use those anchor points there, just drag those around. And you can see other videos about this on the Graphic Extras channel. Split the warp using the crosswire, right click. Just drag that around a bit. Press return. And again, define that. Define that as a pattern. Edit menu, define pattern. And you can do that repeatedly. Maybe use a selection just to select an area of that. Stylize, oil paint, find edges, whatever. Click OK. So set the stylization fairly high. Click OK. And then define that as a pattern. And duplicate that over and over again. There's many, but at some point, you want to use those patterns. I just wanted to create a set of pattern designs. You can also use other filters as well. Wave. Create all kinds of different wave design. I love the wave one. It's really, really quite useful. Setting the wavelength and amplitude. Set wrap around. Once you're happy with that, click OK. And then define that as a pattern. Now, I know it's chopped off at the edge. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be a seamless pattern for this example. So that's defined as a pattern. That's the one great thing about the random fill. It's not like with the normal pattern. That would look pretty ugly, I think. But with the random fill, it works well. So create a new document. Make that 300. Resolution. Go with 16-bit. You don't need to keep it in 8-bit now because we're not using art history anymore. So great. If you want to use art history with this, you have to turn it back to 8-bit. So edit menu and fill. And you can apply this on a layer. You don't have to. I'm just applying. You can apply it to a background. You can apply it to a layer. So set the contents to pattern again. Go down and set one of the designs you've just defined. One of those. A whole selection of them. And make certain script is on. I always deselect it, select it back on. Again, Photoshop sometimes just ignores that and just applies it as a normal pattern. Otherwise. Set the density fairly high, set the scale factor, rotate pattern. Also colour. Set that down up to max and just apply it. Edit and fill. You can apply it again 3 or 4 times or undo it. Maybe create it like that on a layer. So layer menu and new layer. And then do edit and fill. Click OK. Now, that time the panel pops up. Sometimes you could just do that without checking, deselecting, and it won't. So fill. Click OK. So run it 3 or 4 times because the preview clearly does not match the end result. But it's still a pretty good example. Again, layer. And what you can do is it's a layer at the moment. You can convert it into a smart object. So layer menu, smart object, and convert to smart object. Then go to layer styles, bevel and emboss. So you can make all that tangle into a 3D design. 3-dimensional anyway, slightly 3-dimensional anyway. So filter menu, stylize and oil paint. Click OK. Apply oil paint again. And so you get a slight smudginess to that design. Then go. You can't unfortunately apply another fill to that because it's a smart object. So a new layer, then edit and fill. Again, make certain scriptures on. Yep. And also select one of those other designs. That's that design there. Select that. Click OK. Now you can change the density, scale factor, all those sort of things, but there it is applied again. Now that creates quite an intense design. You can apply it 3 or 4 times. Maybe combine it with oil paint. There's oil paint there. You can scale that. Maybe make it bigger, maybe make multiple copies of it and then use blending modes to blend them. You know, like blending mode, just go down there to difference. Okay, very abstract design there. Flatten the image via the layer menu. And then go to filter and oil paint. So you've got your design there. All kinds of designs can be created. Now I'm just going to go through some more of those patterns that I've saved earlier. So edit and fill. And select that one now. Just run through them all. I'm just going to do this fairly quickly. So again, make certain scriptures on, click OK. Change density, whatever, if you wish, click OK. And then you can see that's the blurred design. So that's the blurred one that was created. Edit and fill. Select a different one. Select that one. Click OK. And you can, like I say, apply it once, 3, 4, 5. Sadly, there's no repeat fill. I really would love that feature to be added. I mean, you've got a repeat filter, so I've never understood why there's no repeat fill. Many other applications have the repeat fill. Would be useful. But then again, I would love to see a repeat option where it says repeat 10 times feature. You can convert it again to smart object via the layer menu. Stylize and oil paint, fine edges, or distort and wave or twirl. Click OK. Change the wavelength to you on that. You can also use liquefy. So filter menu and liquefy. And you can repeatedly create these multiple layers and combine them in many different combinations. And they're all using that art history design. All from that very basic triangle. So create a new layer. And I like to create layers, and I like to use them as smart objects once I've defined the pattern, applied the pattern. So edit and fill. I can set that one. And make certain scriptures on. It's OK. Click OK. Now you don't have to keep the colorize random high. You can put that down again. Brightness, you can change that if you wish. Personally, I like the randomization, but it's up to you. Change the scale factor, make it bigger, smaller. Click OK. And then you've got the design there. And again, you can apply it 3 or 4 times. You can add new layers, add blending modes. You can add shadows, layer style via the layer menu. So that one's going to have a shadow. Click OK. Gives even more depth to the image. edit and fill again if you wish, or maybe create another layer. Or maybe apply a different pattern to the same design. And of course, you can always colorise the design before you apply these patterns, so you can layer them over and over again. Again, like another oil paint. So you can see you've got like 3, 4, 5, just keep sort of layering different designs using this edit fill. Again, a layer, new layer. Great thing about layers, you can always use blending modes. You can also remove them at any point as well if you don't want to keep them. So add another fill there. Make certain script is on. Press return. Again, change the density, change the scale factor. Don't have to keep it those values at all. Maybe make the scale factor 1 and 1. Don't need any randomised tool for the scale then. And it's a layer, you've just applied it to a layer. So you can always then just drag that layer around, scale it. You can also hold down the Alt Option key, drag and duplicate. So make 3 or 4 copies of it. Rotate it, apply warps. Now, I know that doesn't look particularly elegant at this point, but I'm going to apply an oil paint to it, so I'm just going to flatten the lot. So layer menu and flatten image. And filter and oil paint. Apply it a couple of times. That will smear the whole design in, so you can create some very abstract, colourful designs using that approach. Now these patterns, this design here, can then be, of course, used combined with the art history again. You could define that as a pattern and go on, create another design. Script is on. That's the wave design pattern that I created earlier. Click OK. You can see the design there. Apply that again. And you can do that over and over again. You can, like I say, combine it with filters, combine it with smart objects. You can recolor things. So all kinds of amazing designs can be generated using this edit and fill, as well as using the art history as a source. From a very basic shape. All these designs from that simple triangle. Then you go to, like, say, layer style, maybe add a bevel. Just give it a bit more painterly effect. I hope you found this tutorial of interest. Please subscribe to the Graphic Extras channel, always adding new tutorials about Photoshop, as well as Illustrator and many others. Also, please add a comment or two, always appreciated. Please subscribe. Also, a dislike or like. Thank you much.